A millionaire's mother was fading away day by day, until her son noticed his wife's special soup. What he discovered hidden in her kitchen would expose a secret so dark it shattered their perfect mansion and saved his mother's life. Daniel Morgan, a self-made millionaire in his late 30s, had built this mansion for his mother, Evelyn, after years of hard work and sacrifice. She had raised him alone, through poverty and pain, believing that one day her son would live a life she could only dream of. And he did, but as fate would have it, the very walls she helped him build would soon echo with betrayal. Lately, Evelyn had been falling ill. At first, it was just fatigue, a little dizziness here, a fainting spell there. Then came the trembling hands, the loss of appetite, and the strange numbness that seemed to creep through her body like winter frost. The doctors couldn't explain it. Every test came back clean. They called it stress of old age, but Daniel's instincts told him otherwise. His wife, Isabella, had taken full control of Evelyn's care, insisting she be the one to handle her meals, medication, and rest. She'd smile sweetly, saying, "Don't worry, darling, your mother is in good hands." Daniel wanted to believe her. After all, Isabella had stood by him during his hardest business years. She was graceful, intelligent, and always knew how to say the right thing. But recently, her kindness felt rehearsed, like lines from a script she no longer cared about. One morning, Daniel came down the stairs early, planning to surprise his mother with breakfast. But as he reached the kitchen doorway, he stopped cold. Through the sunlight streaming across the counter, he saw Isabella leaning over a bowl of soup, Evelyn's soup. Her navy blue dress shimmered as she tilted a small white bottle, letting a few drops of an amber liquid fall into the bowl. Her face showed no warmth, no hesitation, just quiet precision. Evelyn sat at the table beside her, frail and unaware, her cloudy eyes watching nothing in particular. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. He stepped back behind the doorframe, breath shallow, as the glass of water in his hand trembled slightly. He wasn't sure what he was seeing. Maybe it was medicine, maybe he was overreacting. But something in Isabella's eyes, the calm, mechanical way she stirred the soup afterward, sent chills through his veins. When she finally turned, she startled slightly upon seeing him. "Oh, you're up early," she said, her tone light but her pupils sharp with surprise. Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep. Thought I'd check on Mum." "She's doing fine," Isabella replied quickly, wiping the bottle with a napkin and placing it back into her apron pocket. "Just her morning vitamins, that's all." He looked at his mother, who gave him a weak smile, her hands trembling as she reached for the spoon. "Good morning, my dear," Evelyn whispered softly, her voice thin as paper. Daniel nodded, sitting across from her. "Morning, Mum. How are you feeling today?" She tried to answer, but the spoon slipped from her hand, clinking against the bowl. Isabella rushed forward, patting Evelyn's shoulder. "It's all right, don't strain yourself." Daniel's jaw tightened. Something was wrong, not just with his mother, but with this entire picture. Evelyn had been strong all her life. She'd survived years of factory work and sleepless nights, raising him with nothing but love and determination. Seeing her now, fragile and fading, filled him with guilt and fear. After breakfast, Isabella escorted Evelyn back to her room. Daniel stayed in the kitchen, staring at the untouched soup bowl. He leaned closer, sniffing it, faintly sweet, but with a strange metallic tang. He dipped a spoon and tasted the tiniest drop. It was bitter. His mind raced. Why would she lie about vitamins? That night, Daniel lay awake beside Isabella, pretending to sleep while she scrolled through her phone. When she finally set it down and turned her back to him, his eyes remained open, fixed on the ceiling. A question burned inside him. What is she giving my mother? By morning, Evelyn's condition worsened. Her pulse weakened, her skin paled. The family doctor came again and looked puzzled. "It's strange," he murmured. "She's declining, but her tests are normal. Almost as if something invisible is wearing her down." Daniel followed Isabella to the kitchen after the doctor left. "What medicine are you giving her?" he asked suddenly. She froze, her hands tightening around a teacup. "What are you talking about?" "The bottle," he said firmly. "The one I saw yesterday." Her eyes flickered. "It's just herbal oil. Something my grandmother used. Helps with digestion." He studied her face, searching for sincerity. But behind her calm smile, something dark glimmered. He didn't press further, not yet. Instead, he simply said, "From now on, I'll prepare her meals." For a moment, Isabella's expression cracked, a flicker of panic before she quickly regained control. "Of course, darling," she said, voice soft again. "If that makes you feel better." As she left the room, Daniel exhaled slowly, knowing this was far from over. He didn't have proof yet, but in his gut, he knew something sinister was unfolding beneath his own roof. And the truth, when he finally uncovered it, would change everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and the woman he had married. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall glass doors of the Morgan mansion, casting long shadows across the marble floors. The house, once echoing with laughter and warmth, now carried an air of quiet suspicion. Daniel Morgan sat at the kitchen island, sipping black coffee, his thoughts heavy as stone. His wife, Isabella, moved gracefully around him, humming softly while preparing breakfast, as if the tension between them didn't exist. Evelyn Morgan was still asleep upstairs. Daniel had personally checked on her earlier. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale and cool to the touch. He could no longer ignore the dread coiling in his stomach. He needed answers. That afternoon, when Isabella left for her weekly charity luncheon, Daniel seized the moment. He entered the kitchen and began his search. Every cabinet, drawer, and shelf was inspected with meticulous care. It wasn't long before he found it, a small white bottle tucked behind a jar of sugar. The label was missing, but the faint smell of its contents made his heart sink, bitter, sharp. The same metallic sweetness he'd tasted in his mother's soup. He snapped a few pictures with his phone, careful not to disturb the scene, then placed the bottle back exactly as he found it. Daniel's mind raced. He had contacts, scientists, chemists, people who owed him favors from his business ventures. By evening, a courier had already taken the bottle to a private lab for analysis. When Isabella returned, she seemed radiant, cheerful even. "How was your day, darling?" she asked, kissing his cheek. "Quiet," Daniel replied, forcing a smile. "Mom's resting." "That's good," Isabella said, setting down her designer handbag. She needs her rest, but Daniel noticed something new in her tone, a casual indifference. It was as if Evelyn's health no longer mattered. That night, as they dined together under the dim golden light of the chandelier, Daniel studied her every move. The way she stirred her wine, how her eyes occasionally flicked toward the staircase. There was calculation in her stillness. 2 days later, Daniel received a call from the lab. The voice on the other end was grim. "Mr. Morgan," the analyst said, "that liquid isn't herbal oil. It contains trace elements of atropine, a compound that, in small doses, can mimic symptoms of aging illness. Fatigue, confusion, muscle weakness, sometimes even heart failure." Daniel froze, his knuckles tightening around the phone. "You're saying someone is poisoning her?" Slowly, the man confirmed. "Yes. Whoever's doing this knows exactly what they're doing." Daniel ended the call, his mind reeling. His wife, his partner, was poisoning his mother. The realization hit him like a knife twisting deep in his chest. But he couldn't confront her yet. He needed proof, undeniable proof. The next morning, he began his silent investigation. He installed tiny cameras in the kitchen and dining room, hidden inside the light fixtures and behind the flower vases. He even placed a small audio recorder in Evelyn's room, disguised within her nightstand clock. He told himself it was for protection, but part of him already knew what he would find. For the next few days, he played the role of the loving husband flawlessly. He smiled, laughed, and even thanked Isabella for her care. Each night, however, he would retreat to his study, download the day's footage, and watch in silence. And then it happened. One evening, Isabella entered the kitchen with that same white bottle. She checked the hallway before approaching Evelyn's soup bowl. Her hand moved with steady precision, 3 drops stirred gently, then wiped clean. Her expression didn't change, no remorse, no hesitation. Daniel's breath caught as he watched the playback. He leaned back in his chair, trembling with a mixture of fury and disbelief. The woman he had trusted with everything, his business, his fortune, his heart, was methodically destroying the very person who had given him life. That night, Evelyn grew even weaker. Daniel sat beside her bed, holding her fragile hand. "Hang in there, Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I promise I'll fix this. I'll make it right." Evelyn's tired eyes fluttered open. "Danny," she murmured faintly. "You've always been a good boy. Don't let your anger destroy you." He smiled painfully. "I won't, Mom, but I can't let her hurt you anymore." By morning, Daniel had made up his mind. He called Dr. Carter to schedule an urgent checkup, pretending it was routine. Then, without telling Isabella, he arranged for a nurse to stay with Evelyn during the day. When Isabella protested, Daniel simply said, "You've done enough. Let someone else handle it for a while." Her eyes darkened for the briefest moment before she smiled again. "Of course, darling," she said, "if that's what you want." But Daniel could sense the shift. Behind her charm, a growing unease brewed. She knew he was watching her, even if she couldn't prove it. The air in the mansion thickened with quiet hostility. That night, Daniel sat alone in his study, reviewing the footage again, his hand gripping a whiskey glass. On the screen, Isabella's shadow moved like a ghost through the kitchen, calm and deliberate. He paused the frame, staring at her face frozen in cold focus. "Why, Isabella?" he whispered to himself. "Why would you do this?" He didn't know the full answer yet, but he was getting closer, and he knew that the next step wasn't just about saving his mother's life. It was about uncovering the motive behind the poison, the reason his wife wanted Evelyn gone, and when he finally found out, it would rip open secrets buried deep within the Morgan family. Secrets Isabella never wanted him to see. The following week passed in a blur of silence and pretense. Daniel Morgan had perfected the art of deception, outwardly calm, inwardly seething. Every morning, he greeted Isabella with a polite kiss and a soft good morning, as if their world hadn't already begun to crumble beneath them. Every night, he watched her from behind his study's hidden camera feeds, piecing together the truth one clip at a time. Isabella, on the other hand, remained unnervingly composed. She moved through the house like a woman with nothing to hide, tending to the flowers, organizing dinner parties, calling friends, and laughing lightly whenever Daniel walked into the room. But Daniel noticed her subtle tension. Her glances were shorter now, her movements sharper. She knew something had shifted between them, but she didn't yet know how much he knew. Meanwhile, Evelyn's condition began to stabilize. The nurse Daniel hired, a gentlewoman named Marlene, ensured Evelyn only ate meals Daniel himself prepared. Within days, her complexion improved slightly, and the trembling in her hands lessened. "Your mother's responding well," Dr. Carter told Daniel during a visit. "I don't know what changed, but whatever it is, keep it up." Daniel nodded silently, his heart heavy with both relief and rage. He was now certain the poison had been in her food all along. And since Isabella had been the only one preparing it, there could be no mistake. But the question that haunted him was why? Why would Isabella do something so cruel, so deliberate? What could possibly drive her to harm a woman who had treated her like family? The answer began to surface one quiet afternoon. Daniel was in his study, reviewing some business documents when his assistant, Colin, called. "Sir," he said carefully, "there's something you might want to see. It's about the Morgan Foundation account." Daniel frowned. "What about it?" "There have been multiple withdrawals over the last 6 months, large ones. Nearly $500,000 transferred to an external account under the name Isabella Reed Morgan." The name hit him like a hammer. Isabella's maiden name, Reed. She hadn't used it in years. "Send me everything," Daniel ordered, his voice low but tight. An hour later, the files arrived. The trail was clear. Isabella had been funneling money into a private account, disguised as donations to charity. But the recipients were fake, shell organizations with no real operations. The money had vanished offshore. Daniel's chest tightened as he pieced it together. Isabella was stealing from him. But how did that connect to his mother's decline? Then the answer began to crystallize. Evelyn had recently regained her mental clarity enough to question the household finances. She'd asked Daniel about certain withdrawals, wondering if he was aware. He hadn't thought much of it then, but Isabella must have seen her as a threat, someone who could expose her. That night, Daniel sat at the edge of Evelyn's bed, his hand resting over hers. "Mom," he whispered, "did you ever tell Isabella about those bank withdrawals?" Evelyn's tired eyes fluttered open. "I mentioned them once," she murmured weakly. "I thought she might know something about the Foundation's new charity projects." Daniel closed his eyes, jaw tightening. That was all Isabella needed, a reason to silence her mother-in-law, slowly and quietly, under the guise of care. He wanted to confront her that very moment, to demand answers and watch her perfect composure crack. But part of him held back. If she was capable of poisoning Evelyn and stealing his money, she was capable of worse. He needed to be strategic. Later that evening, he found himself standing at the glass doors leading to the patio, staring out into the dark Los Angeles skyline. The air was thick with humidity and betrayal. Behind him, Isabella entered quietly, her voice smooth and confident. "Daniel," she said softly, wrapping her arms around him. "You've been distant lately. Is something wrong?" He turned slowly, masking his fury with a faint smile. "Just work stress," he replied. "The new contracts are draining me." Her lips curved faintly. "You're always overworking yourself." She touched his chest gently, looking up at him with those same brown eyes that once made him fall in love. "Maybe you should let me handle more of the family finances again. You have too much on your plate." Daniel's heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. "No," he said firmly. "I think I'll manage." For the briefest moment, her smile faltered, revealing something darker behind her eyes. Then she quickly recovered. "As you wish, darling," she said, turning away. When she left the room, Daniel exhaled shakily. That single exchange told him everything. Isabella wasn't just dangerous, she was bold enough to keep manipulating him even when she suspected his distrust. Later that night, he opened his laptop and contacted a private investigator named Lydia Crane, one of the best in Los Angeles. Her task was simple but urgent: trace every financial transaction linked to Isabella Reed Morgan and uncover anything that could connect her to criminal activity. Within days, Lydia sent back her findings, a shocking file that showed Isabella had not only stolen money but had been in contact with a man named Victor Lang, a former business rival of Daniel's. Victor had lost millions after Daniel acquired his company years ago. The file included call logs, encrypted emails, and even meeting locations at luxury hotels. Daniel stared at the evidence, his heart sinking. It wasn't just greed, it was revenge. Victor and Isabella were working together. The poisoning of Evelyn was a distraction, a way to weaken Daniel emotionally while they siphoned his fortune behind his back. The mansion suddenly felt smaller, suffocating with deceit. Evelyn's faint breathing from the next room was a painful reminder of how close he had come to losing her. Daniel clenched his fists. "You wanted to destroy my family," he muttered to the dark. "You almost did, but not anymore." As dawn crept across San Marino's hills, Daniel made his decision. He would play the final act carefully. One mistake, and Isabella could escape, or worse, hurt his mother again. He picked up his phone, sending a message to Lydia, set the cameras in the dining room for full audio capture. "Tomorrow night I'll give her the chance to confess." The morning sun broke through the glass walls of the Morgan mansion, glinting off the silver-framed portraits that now felt like witnesses to everything that had unfolded. Daniel stood in the garden, the scent of damp earth and freshly cut roses filling the air. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at the tiny camera hidden inside the flower pot, the same one that had revealed the truth about Isabella's cruelty. Evelyn, still fragile but gaining strength day by day, sat under the veranda wrapped in a soft cream shawl. Her eyes, once dulled by fear and exhaustion, now shimmered with the faint light of peace. Beside her, a nurse gently adjusted her chair, ensuring she was comfortable. Daniel walked toward his mother, each step heavy with both guilt and relief. "Mom," he said softly, kneeling beside her, "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I should have protected you." Evelyn reached out, her hand brushing his cheek. "You were blind, my son, but love often blinds before it teaches us to see." Her voice carried both forgiveness and quiet strength. "Don't carry hate for her. Let justice do its part." Daniel nodded, though deep inside, the ache of betrayal still burned. He had loved Isabella, or rather the version of her he thought was real. He had envisioned a future built on trust and partnership, not deceit and greed. The police investigation had uncovered everything. Isabella had been secretly administering mild doses of sedatives and medication meant for Evelyn's old heart condition, enough to keep her weak and confused, but not enough to kill her. Her goal was simple: isolate Evelyn, have her declared mentally unstable, and gain full control of Daniel's inheritance portfolio, which included the mansion and family business shares. But fate, or karma, had other plans. When confronted with the footage, Isabella broke down at first, trying to twist the narrative. "I was helping her sleep. She was anxious," she cried before the detectives, her tears flowing like a desperate act on stage. But the medical tests told the truth. The substances she gave Evelyn had no therapeutic reason. Daniel stood behind the one-way mirror at the police station, watching as the woman he once adored crumbled into her own web of lies. Days later, silence filled the Morgan mansion, not the heavy silence of sorrow, but a healing one. Evelyn's laughter slowly returned, faint and musical. The new house staff, kind and respectful, ensured her meals were nutritious and timely. Daniel began visiting her room every evening, sitting beside her bed as they talked about simpler times, his childhood, his late father's jokes, the garden Evelyn once tended herself. One afternoon, as Daniel trimmed the roses his mother loved so much, a familiar scent caught his attention: lavender. It reminded him of the day his mother's decline began. But instead of pain, the fragrance now carried renewal. He realized that evil doesn't always come as thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly, in perfume and smiles, in hands that pretend to care. Later that evening, Daniel called a press conference, not as the grieving son of a millionaire's family, but as a man determined to speak truth. Cameras flashed as he stood at the podium. "This isn't just about my family," he began. "It's about every elderly person left in the care of someone who sees them as a burden. We must never turn a blind eye to their suffering. Love means watching, not assuming." The story went viral overnight. Social media overflowed with empathy and outrage. People across the city came forward sharing similar experiences, silent abuses behind grand walls. The Morgan Foundation, once just a name, became a real movement. Daniel dedicated a portion of his fortune to creating an organization for elderly protection and caregiver transparency. Weeks passed. Evelyn, now healthier and surrounded by genuine warmth, watched her son from her balcony as he spoke with volunteers in the garden. A soft smile touched her lips. "Your father would be proud," she whispered to herself. Daniel turned and caught her gaze, lifting his hand in a gentle wave. "We're home now, Mom," he said quietly, more to his heart than to her. "And this house finally has peace again." As twilight descended, the mansion glowed not with luxury but with light, real, pure, and earned.